All right. Good morning, boys and girls. We're continuing with Snow Treasure, and we read chapter one yesterday, and they were kind of setting the stage for the rest of the book. There was their uncle Victor came back from Oslo, and that's where they left off. So here we are, chapter two. When Peter told his father about seeing Uncle Victor after that afternoon, he saw a look of alarm come over his face. Now, that was strange because although the two brothers were different in every way, there was a strong bond between them. Was Uncle Victor in some sort of trouble? Peter wondered. But when he asked his mother, she shook her head. Well, why did father go out? He asked. He never does at night. He says he's tired after a day at the bank and likes to stay home. Yes, I know, his mother replied. And he's busier than ever right now, and so he must be tired. A Treasury official had been here from Oslo, and your father has had to work very hard. He's worried. Is it because we're going to be poor? Lavisa asked. Is there something wrong with the bank? For Lavisa and Peter had always lived in horror of something wrong with the bank. Not that I know of, Lavisa, her mother answered. The bank has more gold than ever. Well, then why is father worried? He used to play a lot with Bunny, Peter referred to his 4-year-old brother. Now he hardly notices him. Is it about the war? He asked as an afterthought. About the Nazis taking Poland? For even up in the Arctic Circle, the disturbance of that year could not be overlooked. Yes, Peter, it has something to do with that. But don't worry, your father's a capable man. Everything he gets his hands on turns out all right. Peter was awakened out of a sound sleep that night. To his room came the tramp of heavy boots. Then bang, 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 boots kicked the outside wall to shake off snow. Then there was more banging of the storm doors and the house door as well. Then came voices. He wondered what could be the matter. He got up to see. It was unlike anything he could remember to have people coming into the house late at night. His father was speaking when Peter got to the door of the living room. He was bent over the hearth, raking the embers of the dying fire. Per Garson, the old houseman, shuffled in and took the fire irons away from him. They'll never get our gold, his father turned to face the men he had brought home with him. His voice was low and hoarse. Not an ounce of it will they touch. Oh, of that I am determined. How much does it amount to? Now that the last shipment is here, John Olson, the clockmaker, asked. It's bullion, of course, Mr. Loundstrom replied, and it's more than 13 tons. And Peter was banker's son enough to know that bullion is the gold before it is made into money. 13 tons, Michael Berg's father exclaimed. Why, that would be 30 million kroner. More, his father replied. It's nearly 40 million. Wow, came a whistle, and Peter saw his uncle, Victor. That's around $9 million in the United States. Uncle Victor had spent much time in America. He and Peter's father had a brother in Minnesota, and Victor had visited them there. More often than not, he spoke of dollars rather than of the Norwegian coin, the krone. Peter made a move into the room, and it was then they saw him. Peter, his father spoke harshly, go back to bed and close the door. Wait a minute, Lars. Uncle Victor addressed his older brother. Peter's nearly 13. It's Peter and the ones his age who can save our gold. I see it now. Why didn't we think of it before? We spent the night considering everything from reindeer sleds to tri-motor planes. And here we have the answer right under our noses. The children. They looked at Uncle Victor in surprise, but he only stepped up and put his arms around Peter's shoulder. This is no boy's game, his father spoke less sharply, and when he looked at Peter, there was sadness in his eyes. Go to bed, son. His voice was kind. Wait, Lars, let me talk to Peter. When he goes to bed, I'll show you how we're going to save our bullion. He drew Peter down from the fire and threw a coat over his pajamas. How many children in Riswick School, Peter? 40? There's near 50, Uncle Victor. How many do you suppose are over 10 years old? Gee whiz, Uncle Victor, I don't know. Maybe half. You mean girls too? Of course I mean girls too. He spoke hurriedly. Now, Peter, when I was a boy, we thought nothing of a sled trip to the Snake. It's 9 miles, but we were young and tough, not soft like you. We thought nothing of a trip like that. We go to the Snake too, Peter retorted, glaring. He never knew when Uncle Victor was teasing him. Of course, you wouldn't start at Riswick. There'd be 2 or 3 miles before you started. That makes maybe 12 miles. Think you could do it? Or would you be crying for Mama all the time? Uncle Victor, I don't know what you're talking about, but I know that Michael and I and lots of others have been on sled trips that lasted a week. And we didn't cry for our mamas either. You'll do, boy. You're all right. But there's another part, and that's the dangerous part. Victor, for all the gold in Norway, I won't have my son in danger, Mr. Lundstrom cut in. Peter wants a chance to help his country, too. Don't you follow? Peter nodded. He wouldn't trust his voice. So, you wouldn't mind if you met an enemy, one that carried a gun? Peter was breathless. His eyes were bright. This was the way Uncle Victor lived. There was excitement wherever he was. And you wouldn't tell, would you, Peter? They could pull your tongue out and you'd never say a word that would hurt your country. Victor, Mr. Loudstrom protested, enough of this. I know what you mean, and it may be our only chance, but don't go on frightening Peter. You're all right, youngster. You'll do, Uncle Victor gave Peter a terrible thump on the back. All right, that leads us to chapter 3. All right, till next time. All right, starting to heat up a little bit.